Hey guys, my name is Mike, and I'm going to be going on a 6-week trip to Thailand coming up here in less than a month. Super excited about this trip. It's been 2 years in the making. Uh, the whole global pandemic situation's put this on hold for quite a while. To give you some background, my work gives me a 6-week sabbatical every 5 years. Well, I've been working there for 7 years now, and that means that I qualified for this sabbatical right at the very beginning of COVID. So horrible timing, right? But needless to say, we're moving on. We're actually going to be going on this trip here right at the end of December, and I wanted to share it with you all and family and friends. So let me take a little time and tell you what I'm going to be doing and where I'm going to be going. So I live in Denver, Colorado, and I'm going to be flying on Christmas Eve back to Virginia, where I grew up, where my family still lives. So joining me on this trip is going to be my little brother and a buddy. And my little brother still lives in Northern Virginia. So we're going to meet up, do Christmas together, do Christmas with the family. And then from there, Matthew and I are going to fly to Phuket, Thailand. And we're going to have a buddy flying in to Phuket from Seattle. He actually lives in Colorado too, but he's visiting family as well for Christmas. So it all works out. So what's going to happen is we're going to fly into Phuket. There's some obstacles we have to go through with COVID and the situation still. So we've had to book arrangements, work with the Thailand pass, and I still have to get a COVID PCR test before we go, which I'm actually going to have to get on Christmas Eve. So fingers crossed that works. Now, once we make it to Thailand after our 25-hour flight with a layover in the United Arab Emirates, we're going to get picked up by our hotel. We had to book arrangements for them to come pick us up due to the current situation. And from there, we'll probably be tired, but we want to explore Patong, where we're staying. Patong is kind of a touristy area of Phuket, separate from like Old Town or some of the smaller beaches. But it's got a beautiful beach. There's a lot to do around there. There's, various restaurants, street food, which we're really looking forward to. Bars are actually still shut in Thailand, so we're going to see how that goes. But worst case scenario, we'll just get some Leos or Chang's at 7-Eleven and everything will be good there. We're really trying to make this more about a adventure rather than, say, a party trip. So, bars being closed isn't the end of the world. Once we're in Phuket, we're going to stay there for 5 nights at a hotel right in the heart of Patong. And there's a bunch of stuff that we want to do. We want to go do some boat trips to the various islands. There's some sweet waterfalls we want to check out. There's even like paragliding where you jump off a cliff with like a parachute and kind of like a fan kind of thing. So, be pretty sweet, especially with the new GoPro. We also want to go check out this nonprofit called the Soy Dog Foundation, which does great work in Thailand rescuing dogs. It also actually rescues dogs from other countries, including Vietnam, where the dog meat trade is a huge issue. So we're actually trying to raise money ahead of time for that too. So check out our Facebook fundraiser if you want, and feel free to donate. After our 5 days in Phuket, we're going to be traveling to, probably my number one bucket list place on this whole trip, which is called Khao Sok National Park. Now, Khao Sok National Park is a giant reservoir that they created with beautiful crystal clear water. There's over the water bungalows that we're going to be staying in, kind of like you see in like Bora Bora, except for, a ton less money. And it's all included. There's a boat ride out to the resort. There's a tour around to various geologic features like cliffs sticking out of the water and stuff like that. There's actually some caves and stuff too. So we're really excited about that. I'm definitely going to get some sweet drone footage and GoPro footage from there. But next we're going to be traveling to Krabi, which is another beach type area in southern Thailand. And we're going to be staying there for 3 nights. Krabi's pretty famous for beaches like Riley Beach and Ao Nang Beach. Again, you've got beautiful beaches with cliffs, right there. So just dramatic scenery. We're excited to check that out. There's also something called the Emerald Pool that, looks really cool. It's this really crystal clear pool of water that's out in the middle of the jungle. So, we want to go check that out. There's also temples, like the Tiger Cave Temple is pretty famous near Krabi. And actually the hostel we're staying in Krabi has tours out there, so that'll definitely make it easier. Okay, from Krabi we're heading to one of the most famous, beautiful beaches in Thailand. It's actually an island called Koh Phi Phi. And there's actually 2 of them. There's the main island, Koh Phi Phi Don, which has basically this real thin peninsula with beautiful beaches on either side. And on the side of that, there's basically 2 mountains. So absolutely gorgeous. We're staying right on the water. But if you don't know, on Koh Phi Phi Lee, the smaller island, there's this beautiful spot where Leonardo DiCaprio made famous in his movie The Beach. And, it's just seriously one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen pictures of or videos of. And we're going to go check that out. And the really cool thing is it's actually been closed. It's been closed, I think since 2017 or 18. So way before COVID even started, because it was so popular that it just got trashed, and the coral was getting damaged, the beach was getting damaged, it was overrun with tons of tourists. So the Thai authorities actually closed it down, and it's actually had maybe 4 years to regenerate and just become as nature kind of intended it to be. So that just reopened, and we're super excited to go there. So yeah, from there, my little brother's gonna go back to Phuket, fly out. My buddy Joe and I are gonna stay in Koh Phi Phi a couple extra nights before we fly out on Monday. I think it's January 10th. So Joe will fly home. Both my brother and Joe only have 2 weeks. Most Americans can only get that much time off. That's a whole different issue we should talk about. But I'm going to be flying from Phuket to northern Thailand. And I'm equally excited to see northern Thailand and, everything that it's got going up there, as I am, the beautiful beaches and islands in southern Thailand. So I'll fly into Chiang Mai, which is the largest city in northern Thailand, and I'm going to do two motorcycle loops. Now, the plan is to start with the pretty famous Mae Hong Son loop, which I think it's about ballpark like 400-ish miles. And it goes clockwise southwest out of Chiang Mai and comes back around back into Chiang Mai, basically. So the plan for that first part, after I've spent a couple days in Chiang Mai, I'm going to rent a motorcycle there. I'm going to do a couple day trips from Chiang Mai before I start the loop to get used to the bike. I'm pretty new to motorcycling. I just bought a KTM 390 Adventure, which, here in the States is a beginner bike. over in Thailand. That's a big boy bike. So it'll be interesting. I'm still working on some of my more finesse skills with shifting the motorcycle. So we'll see what I end up renting and actually being able to rent, because it's actually pretty busy over there. So I'm gonna go to some day trips like the Buatong Sticky Waterfalls outside of Chiang Mai. And this waterfall, if you're not aware of it, it's super cool. There's some sort of like calcium deposit or something that makes it sticky, so you can actually walk up the waterfall in bare feet. So I'm gonna check that out. Then another day, there's a mountain right next to Chiang Mai called Doi Suthep. And Doi Suthep, it's not the tallest mountain in Thailand, which I'll be going to later, but there's actually some like hill tribes that still live up there and have villages and, show off their culture and heritage and how people used to live in that area, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So super excited to see that. And there's also really cool viewpoints, which, I'm looking forward to getting video of and some drone footage of before really embarking on the Mae Hong Son Loop. So after 3 nights in Chiang Mai, I'm going to start my first loop. And we're going to start off by heading south out of Chiang Mai, and we're going to go to Doi Inthanon. And it's the tallest mountain in all of Thailand. It's about 8,000 feet tall. And the really cool thing, is you can actually drive to the very top of it. So if you have a motorbike or a proper motorcycle, you can get pretty much all the way to the top. There's 2 pagodas up there that are dedicated to, like, I think it's the king and queen of Thailand. So that'll be cool to check out on the top of the mountain. And from there, I'm going to stay kind of at the base of the mountain. There's a couple different smaller villages with like hostels and glamping kind of spots, so I'll check that out. From there, it's kind of southeast to Mae Sarang, which is the next town on the traditional Mae Hong Son Loop. Mae Sarang's kind of a sleepy town compared to some of the other ones that I'll be going to, but there are some pretty cool waterfalls along the way from Doi Inthanon to Mae Sarang. From there, it's straight north, about 100 miles to Mae Hong Son, which is the capital of the province, and also, what the loop gets its name from. So it's a little bit bigger of a town. It's got, night markets, different restaurants and bars, if the bars are open, that I want to check out. And there's some cool stuff to do around it. There's a couple caves. There's a lake called Pangun, which is real close to the Myanmar border. I'd love to go to Myanmar at some point. I just don't have time on this trip, but I'll be close. So then there's also Ban Rak Thai, which is a small traditional Chinese village in northern Thailand that's up there. Not sure if I'm gonna have time to check that out, but I really want to if time permits. But then from there, it's time to head to the last stop before kind of finishing the Mae Hong Son Loop and starting the rest of my journey. And that's going to be the town of Pai. Now, if you're not familiar with Pai is kind of like, it's been a backpacker's paradise for, decades and decades. People would fly in, to Thailand, they'd go up to Chiang Mai, and they would, instead of doing the whole Mae Hong Son Loop, they would typically take a bus or rent a motorbike and just drive straight to Pai, which I think is about like maybe 50 or 70 miles. I'm not sure offhand. But, it's really cool. There's this really cool canyon that's really narrow that you can walk across. That's pretty popular. There's a bunch of waterfalls. It's kind of got a hippie vibe. It's probably not exactly my vibe, but definitely cool people up there, and I'm excited to see it. And yeah, so I'll probably spend a couple days in Pai before heading off, basically back to Chiang Mai, but then starting my next loop, which is going to be the Golden Triangle loop. Now, this one's actually a little bit longer than the Mae Hong Son loop, and it's not as well defined, I guess. Mae Hong Son loop is, it's pretty clear, like, you go here, 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 and here, and you're back in Chiang Mai. The Golden Triangle loop is kind of more whatever you want it to be. So instead of going basically west out of Chiang Mai, it's going to be going east. And the first stop there is going to be a place called Chiang Dao. And it's a really cool little mountain town. I've seen some pretty cool pictures and videos about it, and just looks beautiful. And it's a small town that I'd like to check out before heading to Chiang Rai. Now, Chiang Rai is another large town or small city maybe in northern Thailand, and it's actually the northernmost city or town in Thailand, and it's pretty famous for a couple temples. There's the White Temple and the Blue Temple. If you don't know what those are, I'm definitely going to show a video of it later for you guys, or you could just Google it if you can't wait, a month or two. But also, even if you've never heard of Chiang Rai or those two temples, you probably heard of the Thai soccer team that got stuck in the cave for quite a while, and two of the rescuers passed away trying to help those folks out. So that happened a couple years ago, and that cave's actually a little bit north of the city of Chiang Rai. So excited to check that out. A little bit east of Chiang Rai is actually the Golden Triangle, and it's what this loop's named after, right? So it's where Thailand, Myanmar, and Laos all meet, and the area has been infamous for the drug trade and smuggling opioids and amphetamines and all sorts of other terrible stuff. But it's a beautiful area, and I definitely want to check it out as well. So as we're moving along in our journey, the next place that I want to check out is on the Thailand-Laos border, and it's this beautiful ridgeline / viewpoint called Puchi Pha. And it's, from everything I've heard, it's another bucket list place you have to go to. Sunrise and sunset are supposedly just epic. Whether it's the sunrise over Thailand or the sunset, setting into Laos, it just looks absolutely gorgeous. So I can't wait to see that. Now, from there, I'll start heading south to a smaller town called Phai Yao. And Phai Yao has a lake that's actually pretty pretty right, at the edge of town. But there's some really cool stuff, right around Phai Yao, which I want to check out. There's this really cool waterfall, just looks gorgeous, with like this pool, and it's really hidden. I think it's called San Sawan Waterfall. Definitely going to check that out. There's the Lampang Emerald Pool, which is kind of similar to what's down in Krabi, but just maybe not as crowded, and just looks gorgeous as well. And from there, I'm going to be traveling again, kind of southwest at this point, to a town called Lampang. And Lampang has some really cool mountaintop temples in the area right around the town. There's the Sky Temple, which has like pagodas or temple buildings on like all these various peaks, which just looks insanely beautiful. I can't wait to go there and get drone footage of it. But there's also a newer temple kind of south of the city, and it has a giant blue Buddha, which, again, it's on the top of a mountain. It's crazy. Like, you just don't see that kind of stuff here in the U.S. There's so much to do in Lampang. I'm probably going to stay there a couple days before returning to Chiang Mai. And I've got 3 days scheduled in Chiang Mai to kind of see more of that city because it is the biggest one in the north. There's also a ton to do there. It's huge with not only backpackers, but expats and digital nomads. So super excited to spend time there. And then my trip's kind of winding down at that point. So from Chiang Mai, towards the end of January, I'm going to take an overnight train to Bangkok. And I'm going to be in Bangkok for, I think it's 4 or 5 days. And I'm staying in the Sukhumvit area. So if you're not familiar with Bangkok, there's kind of 2 main places that tourists stay, right? So there's the old town, kind of like Khao San Road, which is kind of like a party area, actually. And then there's Sukhumvit, which is like the downtown business district almost. So I'm staying in one of the nicer areas called Asok. There's a SkyTrain mass transit system station right there, so it'll make it easy to get around the city. There's, definitely, if the bars are open, there is nightlife in that area too, which will be nice to check out and, just spend some time exploring the biggest city in Thailand. And then February 2nd, I'll actually fly out of Bangkok and head back to Washington, D.C. before finishing up my trip and traveling back to Denver. So I'm super excited about this trip. I mean, 6 weeks is going to fly by. Kind of sad that I'm going to be not going to spend more time in each of these places, but I think it'll be really cool to experience so much of Thailand over 6 weeks, and then, hopefully at some point get to go back and, explore more in detail. So glad to have you guys on the adventure with me. I'm going to be making some practice videos here ahead of time so I can get used to my new GoPro and my new drone, so that I can really make some quality videos to just capture memories and experiences on this journey. So hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and super excited to have you guys join in on this adventure with us.